Hey, welcome to the 40 Athletes Podcast. I'm your co-host, Jason Hoser, along with my good buddy, Jimmy Huber. Jimmy, today on the show, man, we got the guy that has the fastest home run shot in Major League Baseball history. Did you know that?
Are you serious? Come on now. How'd they figure that out?
I think it timed him. Because
Really?
I think he had the slowest, and then he's like, you know what? I want to have the fastest. And so he literally sprinted around the bases after he knocked a homer.
Well, that's the smart probably to sprint around the bases so you don't have somebody throwing at your head after, you sit there and jog around it. I wouldn't want to have a 95-mile-per-hour fastball coming in my head after that.
Here's the thing, though. I was able to hit inside the park homer, so I always had to run my hardest. I wasn't able to knock it over the fence. So, also, by the way, for all you moms out there, he was playing second base when Dallas Braden threw that perfect game on Mother's Day.
Wow. Hey, that gets the hearts of the mothers right there.
And speaking of heart,
doing it on Mother's Day.
As a rookie, he won the Heart and Hustle Award.
So he's got a big heart. I think he's got a big heart.
I know he does.
Who is it?
Well,
who do we got?
So today we got Adam Rosales, who's actually a skipper in the A's organization as well. So we're gonna bring him on. Adam, how's it going, man?
Good. How are you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
Doing great, yeah.
Skipper, he's leading professionals right now, huh? That's awesome, man. Congrats on that.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you. It's a sweet opportunity, no question.
Adam, how are things going where you're at right now?
Great. We're getting ready for Thanksgiving over here. Got some couple family members coming in. It's gonna be good to see them.
Yeah, always. One thing I noticed about you is your attention to detail, Adam. Anytime like we've been on a call or things like that, I've noticed that you were really into the details. How, as a baseball player, how did that help you like become more detail oriented? What did that teach you? What did sports teach you through that?
Well, the thing is, it's not like the amount. I appreciate that in the first place. It's cool of you to acknowledge that, but it's not like the amount of detail. I think, especially as a player, it was more like the right details that I would pay attention to. And obviously that comes from just kind of keeping your ears and eyes open and kind of keeping your mouth shut, but listening to the leaders around you and just paying attention to what they're doing and kind of follow suit. It's kind of my approach.
So what were some of the things like that you mentioned picking the right details? Can you give the audience, like, what were those right details that you felt like really elevated your game, and who were some of the people that you really paid attention to?
I mean, like playing defense, like in baseball, playing defense, you paying attention to stuff like you have to know the speed of the runner. You have to know the game situation, right? Before it's even going to happen. So you're kind of understanding what's going to happen before it happens on defense. And then hitting wise, like obviously like knowing the pitcher, how he's going to pitch you, say he's going to throw you cutters inside. You have to completely eliminate that and probably know what part of the plate is where you're going to maximize or get the best results from. That's what I kind of always did, like separate defense and hitting as well.
Let's get into that because like hitting a baseball is one of the hardest things to do. I don't care what people say. I mean, you talk about you get 95, 99, mile-per-hour fastballs coming in. You got sliders, curveballs. So I guess my question is this, is how do you go about, like, we see the big moments in sports, right? You can see people accomplishing the big home runs, getting the big hits. But you had to go about mastering the little things in hitting. So how did you go about mastering becoming a hitter at the major league level?
Obviously, that's a ton of reps and a ton of experience. I've had some great coaches, started with my dad, coming all the way up through college at Western Michigan to the pros. But they always focus on the fundamentals, on the small things, because it's the small things that's going to add up to that great moment, right? And you think about guys like a Kirk Gibson, back in the '88 World Series. Mm-hmm. You think about or like a Rajai Davis, most currently, in Game 7, 2016. And you think about the little things that they did. Like I remember watching videos of Kirk Gibson, like right before he hit that homer, he stepped out. He called timeout after he had 2 strikes on him, but he calls timeout, recollects himself for 1 second, gets back in the batter's box, wins the ball game, right? And same thing with Rajay Davis. I get to play with Raj. But like remember watching his at bat and how he was choked up on the bat, like the adjustment that he made. Guys, those adjustments aren't made in that moment. They were doing that all the way throughout their career. You know, I'm sure Kirk Gibson would step out, call timeout to recollect his thought, or Rajay Davis would choke up when he's battling a guy like Chapman, you know. But it's the small things that you've done since you've been a little kid that add up to that big moment at the right time. That's the way I can say it.
Now, Adam, you said that you were coached by your dad growing up. And a lot of times, that can be an interesting relationship as you get older and become teenagers and that kind of thing, and you think you know more than your dad. How was your dad able to coach you in a way that was productive, that was a way that you were able to take in what he was saying, and build a good relationship using sports?
Well, first of all, he gave me a choice, right? He always put a choice out in front of me, so he wasn't saying, "Hey, Adam, you got to go play. You have to be here and do this or that." No, it was like, so I remember I wanted to go to the lake house one time with my brother, with like my siblings and some friends, and he said, "Adam, what do you want to do with baseball?" And I said, "Well, Dad, I want to play in the big leagues." And he says, "Well, you got to get in the car and we got to go play some ball then." And then stuff like that. He made me make the decision. So,
going back, Adam, I got a question on that. Going back, so we got to go, play. We got to, put some work in baseball. Your dad was encouraging you to do that in a way that you made the decision. But what were your workouts like? Did you go, okay, I'm gonna swing on the tee, I'm gonna hit the baseball in the cage or whatever, and I'm gonna get 100 swings a day, 200 swings a day? How did you go about it in putting the time into mastering hitting?
It's exactly it. I mean, it was a lot of sweat equity, that I put in, a lot of time that I put in. But I mean, you have to have good guidance too in order to have the right approach and understand how to maximize a certain practice. But a lot of reps, a lot of time in the cage, there's no question.
So look at this. You hit I think it's 225 or something like that in baseball, right? Your average throughout. And again, that's major league. I mean, hitting 300 and above is kind of like a Hall of Famer. My question for you is okay, so you're failing 8 out of 10 times, or 7.5 out of 10. How do you keep that mentality to get in the box and be okay, I'm going to go in confident this next time, even though I might have got out the last 5 times? How do you keep that mentality and that confidence to be successful at that next plate appearance?
That's a great question, because that is the struggle in baseball, right? That is the hardest thing to do, is to be able to kind of get out of your own way. And the way I did that was I broke my at-bats up into 10 at-bats. As I go, probably started doing this in college. I would take 10 at-bats at a time, no matter what the results were. If I got 5 hits or if I got no hits, I would learn from those at-bats and I would move on. Completely gone, right? And then, but the key is you have to learn something from those 10 at-bats. Because if you don't, then you're just going to be going through the motions. But that's how I approached it. Because it's such a long season, right? There's a lot of at-bats you're going to have.
So would you do it in the sense of, would you watch film of yourself, or how would you break down the at-bats to be okay, here's what I'm going to learn, and what would you learn from those at-bats?
That's great. So I would actually journal it. I would write it down in a journal. I would take 10 at-bats. I would mark when the first at-bat started and then when the last at-bat started. And I wouldn't count walks or getting hit by pitches. And the main thing I was looking at is if I stayed in my strike zone, right? If I came out of my strike zone, bad check, So how many times I would stay in my strike zone, then I would calculate it afterwards. I would say, all right, this time I stayed in my strike zone 60% of the time, which is pretty good. For me, it was pretty good and then I would mark when I hit the ball hard, and if I didn't, or if I missed a pitch, or if I swung through a pitch. So I'd always do all these own personal analytics, but it's all through journaling, right? And it's so important to write these things down, or write notes about the pitcher, what the pitcher had, how he tried to get me out the time before. So the next time I was a little bit more prepared.
So would you do like visualization? You hear it a lot where
Yeah.
like you'd visualize before your at bats or the night before the game, you kind of see yourself going against a certain pitcher and battle them in the box and getting hits. How would you go about it, kind of getting your mind prepared to have those at bats be successful?
100%. Again, the visualization and the mental side of the game, I started doing that at Western Michigan. The punter on the team gave me a book called punter on the football team gave me the book called Mind Gym by Gary Mack, and this is a powerful book. Yeah, I'm sure
you got that back there. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, I'm sure. There's a lot of great ones out there, and that's what I took the time to read those kind of books. And I started visualizing at Western Michigan. I'd go out and I would lay on the grass before the game and put my hat over my head and just lay out there down the left field line. But I really got into it. It was in 2008 when I was really struggling. And I was in AAA in Louisville in the Cincinnati Reds organization. And I was hitting $180 in June, and they're talking about sending me back down to AA. But I'm like, I'm so close to the big leagues and I haven't broken in yet. I'm like, I need to do something. So I really honed in on this idea of visualization. I would go in this like little private bathroom right there before you walk down the tunnel to go into the dugout. I would just lay on my back, same thing, and I would visualize and give myself kind of like metaphorical visions of whether it was a mechanic that I was really needing to capitalize on in that game, or if it was seeing the pitch better and really envisioning the spin of the ball coming into my zone and me blasting this ball into the gaps. And it was a really vivid visualization, though. And then I got called up that year.
That was awesome. Did you have a routine though? Because striking out, getting out, was there a routine that you had? You'll hear athletes have routines where they kind of like flush the toilet, like acting like they're taking a piece of paper and they're crumbling it, throwing the trash. Did you have something to get you to move on to that next bat, next rep?
I mean, usually I would try to keep my cool. No matter what, I would try to control my emotions. My former teammate and former manager, Andy Green, I had a great conversations on 2 accounts. And he told me both times, and it was about 10 years in between each conversation. But he said, "Hey, Adam, we know how much you care. You don't have to show it, right?" And it's hard for me because I'm really emotional. Like I really want it so bad, and you can just tell I want it so bad. But he said, "Hey, you don't have to show that, man. Just know that you're gonna be all right. Trust your stuff, and trust that like when you control your body, you're gonna be a lot better the next time." But I took that advice. Go ahead. I'm not sure.
I do want to get into. People don't understand like the minor leagues in baseball. I know it's changing, but it's hard. I mean, you're not flying in big planes. You're not staying in like, this isn't like the 5-star and everything you're doing. I mean, it's like you see Michael Jordan back when he was like with the White Sox, and I know he put some money in the invest to help with some of that stuff. But I guess my question for you is, being in the minor leagues and trying to get to the majors is tough. It's hard. Like, what did you do to, like, you're getting ready to get moved back down to AA, and you want to stay in AAA to get that call to the majors, and you're that close. What did you do to kind of, they talk about like grit and keep that mindset to where I'm like, I'm not quitting. I'm continuing to move on. I'm going to stay the course. What did you do? Because a lot of people sometimes quit and they just give up.
You got to have that vision, that ultimate vision of the major leagues. My vision of playing one day on Wrigley Field, where I grew up in Chicago. You have to stick to that vision, right? That's number one. But you have a support system behind you, and you have to buy into that people want you to be a Major League Baseball player. And it starts with your family, but also the whole organization. They want you to be a Major League Baseball player. So I started tapping into the resources, started asking questions, started becoming more of a student of the game. But yeah, it's intimidating because you don't want to get sent down. I never thought about getting sent down and being like, oh, the amenities and all that stuff are worse down there. That was never a thought in my mind. I didn't care about that. I would sleep in a tent if I had to. Coming up through I'd sleep anywhere. I would live It didn't matter. I wanted to play with the best. That was my mentality. I didn't care about anything else because the game doesn't. You're not supposed to expect anything from the game. That's what my motto was. But my gosh, my parents, my family just backing me up, encouraging me to play with the tops. That's kind of keeps you in line too.
What kind of questions did you ask? Like you're talking about asking questions. What are questions you ask that you'd recommend other people to ask to help them on the journey as well?
Hey, what's my weakness? How are these guys getting me out? What how could I improve? You were here before. What did you do? What's your experience? That and then just talking, telling them my best hitting coaches were like sports psychologists. Just venting to them, letting it out because I coming up to the system like I'm a tough guy. I'm not going to let anybody know that I'm struggling right now. But everybody knows you're struggling, so just talk about it, get it out. But it does. You do have to trust that individual. That they do have to understand you on that higher level too, though.
What did it mean to you to win? Like, so your rookie year, you made it. Everybody knows like Adam cares about it, but like as a rookie, you win the Heart and Hustle Award. Like, was that kind of like affirmation that I'm on the right path? Like, did that something like propel you forward, or was that something like, yeah, of course I won it because what was that? Did that mean anything to you? What did that award like really help you with?
Yeah, well, of course it means a ton to me. Like I was never like one to be like, oh, sweet, I got a big trophy, let's hang it on the wall. I was never like a guy like that. But you think about like the Heart and Hustle. You think about Cincinnati Reds, and what do you think about right away?
Pete Rose, Charlie
Pete Rose,
Hustle.
right?
Let's go.
They actually called me Pete Rosales when I was there. So it's kind of, but just like to play in that same organization and to be awarded that Heart and Hustle Award. You think about a guy like Pete Rose, like what he brought to the game and his grit and his whatever you want to call him, like that bulldog mentality to be his best baseball player. But that was the cool thing about it for me.
Yeah, kind of the tenacity to go after it every day, and just be relentless. I think that's kind of and how is that transferred over into your life, like outside of baseball? Like, have you felt like seeing the transition, the skills, like those skills that you learned, relentlessness, the heart, the hustle? Like, what have you done now to transition that to whenever you weren't playing baseball?
I mean, we have children. I'm not sure if you guys have kids, but that's a lot of tenacity, right? You got a lot of patience, right? But the thing is, you got to make sure you stick on that routine. I mean, obviously, I'm in parenting 101 right now. We have young kids, but it's you have to stick to that routine, just like I had in baseball. I knew what I wanted to accomplish that day, and same thing with my children and how important they are in my life, and I know the influence that I want to be on their life, and whatever the small things, making sure we're up early, eating breakfast before they get school day started, and for me personally, sharing like a scripture with them and saying a prayer with them is important to me, and stuff like that. Just teaching them bigger values in life, but that takes a lot of tenacity, though. That takes a lot of patience.
Yeah, because a lot of times athletes they have this mindset while they're playing, while they're practicing in the sport. But sometimes it's hard for that to carry over in public, in their home life, sometimes like that. So, what tips would you give coaches, athletes to help you take that mindset of when you're in sports and transition it to those same things out of sports?
Man, because it is this is a tough transition for me personally. Like coming from a baseball player and now going to more into this coaching role and being at home with my family every day. It's a different responsibility, but it comes down to being resilient, right? And focusing on the process still and not like the results of the day. But I think the word that comes to my mind is that resilience. And that's, I mean, if I would give anybody advice to this transition, you still have to be resilient and still be competitive in your own way.
So you going from a player now to a coach, being the skipper of running a team, and being the leader. So let's start with this. What are some of the best things you've seen some of the coaches that you played for, what they've done that you're going to implement as a coach as well?
Communication. Number one is communication with not only their staff, but the players. Bob Melvin, I'll talk about him all the time. I mean, I already talked about Andy Green, right? How he communicated with me, but Bob Melvin, it's so much in depth what goes on in the coaching, and I didn't realize it until I was here doing instructs here in Arizona, because I was just working with the infielders, and I'm responsible for 9 infielders. I got really good at controlling my little bubble when I was a player. I got really good at that, but now I have to focus on 9 different players, making sure they know the situation, they know what position they need to be in. And now I'm going to be a manager. It gets even more. I got to delegate to coaches and staff. There's a lot going on. But going back to Bob Melvin, he would walk around the infield during batting practice almost all the time, and he wouldn't just talk to his guys, right? He wouldn't talk to just the starters, because I was a utility player. He would always come up to me, and he would let me know, hey, Baumgartner's throwing in 2 days. Make sure you're ready to face him, and do whatever you got to do. But the little stuff like that is what I need to remember, is that, and this game is not easy. These players, I need to remember that these players have a lot of pressure on them on and off the field. And if I can lighten that, and if I can communicate with them that I know how difficult the game is, it's gonna help our team win ultimately.
Would Coach Melvin or some of the other coaches in the communication, would they kind of talk to you about stuff outside of baseball and just kind of life and just kind of connect with you? Were there strategies they used in that way too?
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I was a quieter player. I was kind of like I said, I kept my ears and eyes open and kind of kept my mouth shut. Majority of my career, just kind of more observant. But yeah, I mean, he'd always ask family. Always ask about the family and tell different stories. Or he'd come and pick up my bat, and he would say, "Hey, this is a sweet bat," or like, "Hey, this is how come you like swinging this bat?" Always, and I was lucky enough to have great managers like him, Dusty Baker, Ron Washington, a ton of great managers that I got to play for and got to learn from.
Did Dusty Baker tell you had to get up there and take the pitch? You had to get in there and get hit. Isn't he? He's the guy. Isn't he the player that has the all-time getting hit by baseball?
Oh, he might be. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
You remember Good News Bears, right? Or Bad News Bears?
Bad News
Bears.
Buda Baker. Like Buda Baker, go up or lean into it. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that again.
Like Roger Dorn in Major League.
Yeah.
He gets hit and he get off first base. No, I'm staying at first base. I just took over the team. No, I'm not leaving. No, he never told me to do that. But he was a lot of great
on that side of it. So being a manager, and you've talked about as a player how hard it is to play this game, especially to hit a baseball and keep your mind right. So what are strategies you're going to implement as a coach on that side of it to make sure that your players are having that confidence, staying ready, being prepared, and not maybe lingering on past mistakes and having limited confidence in themselves?
Well, number one thing is I'm going to delegate to my staff. There's going to be a hitting coach that deals with the hitters. There's going to be an infield coach that deals with the infielders. Pitching coach dealing with the pitching coach. Make sure I communicate with them personally about each player. But then again, going up to somebody, it's got to be at the right time, though, right? It's all about timing. It's putting your arm around the kid and saying, "Hey, I get it. I understand." It's good. Like, just be patient. Like, going back to playing, Joey Votto. I remember I was struggling in Cincinnati, and he wasn't a manager, but very wise teammate of mine that I enjoyed playing with. But he put his arm around me when I was struggling, and he said, "Adam, do me a favor and just be patient with yourself. Right? You got time to develop. You're just, because it was my rookie year, the same year I won the Heart and Hustle Award. But remember, that was early in the season, and Joey Votto, something like that, though, right? You got to be able to go and build them up. That's the thing. I have a good friend of mine, Ronnie Ortegon. He was my the Cincinnati Reds hitting coordinator in 2007, which was a monumental year, a pivotal year of my career, and he was there as a mentor. But he always said that he's in the business of building up. He's in the business of building up players, and that's what I am all about. Because, like we said before, this game is tough. These kids are getting broken down on and off the field. We got to find a way to build them up, not be soft to them. Not like be like, oh, pamper him. I'm not about that. But just find a way to, hey, genuinely, he's struggling right now. Let's find a way to build him up, to let him know that he is great. Like he's a professional ball player, and he's that close to maximizing his potential.
Will you give them like strategies, like you talk about the visualization, maybe routines, and try to work them through that as well as a manager? Like maybe take time to teach them that.
100%. Definitely the mental side. I would definitely touch on that. But other stuff that kind of ties into the mental and physical, like I would tell them stories about how they used to call me the Labrador in Oakland, because I would get a bat and 2 baseballs, throw the ball up to myself, and hit line drives and chase after it. And I would just run with an empty stadium. I started doing this in like AAA, and just stuff like that. Give them like ideas like that. Hey, you don't have to just come and just you can think outside the box sometimes. You don't have to just come and just go through the routine and do what the schedule says. Be an artist out there. Be your own guy. It's not just about just going through the motion. Enjoy this, man. You got a blank. You got an empty canvas, and that's what I really look forward to having these conversations with.
You're using your imagination there. Holy
oh my
cow.
God!
Coming out, so I'll take this bat and hit the ball and chase it.
Oh, I got some heat for that though. People are like, what are you doing? They go, I think because one of my teammates I come in and one of my teammates says, Adam, I think you lost your mind. And I said, you know what? I think I found it. So like it's stuff like that. Yeah, people are gonna think you're nuts. People think you're crazy, but that's the beautiful thing about the game. That's what's been great for me. It's been an escape for me ever since I've been a little kid, to express myself. And what better way to just be yourself out there,
And I think that's kind of one thing that I've noticed too, is like whenever people start telling you you're nuts, I mean, obviously in context, it kind of maybe tells you you're going the right direction at the same time, right? Like what are you doing that for? It doesn't make any sense. Like, I remember like Jim would tell me, about stories about Kobe Bryant would practice without a basketball for 45 minutes. And Shaq would be like, dude, you're nuts. Where's your ball? Like just like that out of the box thinking, people might think you're nuts, but probably because they don't understand the mentality behind it, So and that's one thing I've learned about you, Adam, is like you're always a lifelong learner. You're like every time we've all been on a call, you're like taking notes. I'm like, what's that guy doing over there? Like it's kind of like he's always taking notes. He's like, don't mind me, I'm just taking notes. Like, so how would you encourage, like, maybe a kid that doesn't know how to take notes or how to be a great learner? How would you encourage them? Do you have ways to give them like a note-taking process and then to study those notes so that way you're not just taking them, but you're also applying them as well?
Well, I'm going to be honest. Going back to when I was younger, I wasn't that studious. I kind of fell short in school, probably because I didn't apply myself like I should have. I could have been better. But I learned that because I am a constant learner and I want to understand why these people right next to me, like a Paul Goldschmidt or an Adrian Beltre, are the way they are. Why are they the way they are? Is because I was in that environment. I was able and fortunate enough to be in this environment. So even if you're not a good student, even if you're not good at taking notes, put yourself in an environment that allows you to grow, right? I didn't put myself in that, and it's on me, right? I'll hold myself accountable for that forever. But so what's the environment? You have a teacher that wants you to be a big league student, right? He or she wants you to excel because they care about you. Ask for time. Ask for extra time. Ask that teacher to stay with you after school. My goodness, if I have no regrets. I will never live with regrets, but I think back how I could do it better. And that's one thing. I would make the teacher give me time because that's their job. And that's on you. That's the environment that you can build for yourself. It's all, and that's my 2 cents of how I would do it. That's what I do now. I put myself in the right environment. I surround myself with people like you guys. You know, I like to enjoy the conversations and learning from people like you.
Yeah. All right. Well, so now we're going to transition to like the last part of the show, and we always have 4 questions we ask people. We call it 4 Qs with 40 athletes. And the first one is, what is the best life lesson that sports has taught you?
It's got to be that idea I mentioned earlier, that the process, focus on the process over results, right? And that takes a ton of patience. Going back to the Joey Votto story, be patient with yourself through the process. Don't worry about getting hits. Don't worry about going to LSU to play baseball. Be in the moment. Learn what you can in the moment. For me, that personally, process.
Yeah. If you could spend time with anyone you admire in sports, alive or passed away, who would it be, and why would you spend time with that person?
Well, that's easy for me. I mean, Michael Jordan, no question. Obviously, I'm from Chicago, and I was a kid at that time, 91, 92, 93, the 96, 97, 98, the repeat, the three-peat. Now, talking about inspiration and thinking you can do anything because of a guy like Michael Jordan and how he – obviously Scottie Pippen and the rest of the Bulls as well, but to have that team to root for, talk about being part of your environment, right? That was my environment, was a Chicago Bulls fan, and to have that leader. And for me, he's the best. I know it's going to ruffle a lot of feathers probably, especially my wife. She's from Cleveland, so she's a big LeBron fan. The best player in the NBA ever, Michael Jordan. There's no question.
Yeah. Hey, I had a shirt too that said three because I was like, probably 7 to 14 when it happened. So that was like the golden age of basketball right there for sure.
Yeah, Michael Jordan.
Question number 3 is this: what is the best advice you've received from a coach that you've either worked for or played for?
It's a great question. Old timer Jimmy Hickman. He was a Cub long time ago, Chicago Cub, and I was in rookie ball, and I'm fresh in, and I was probably struggling at the time when he told me this, but he pulled me aside and he pointed to my head. He says, "You know what that is, Adam?" And he speaks really wisely when he's telling me this. I said, "That's my head? I don't know what you're talking about, Jim." He said, "No, that's your filter. You're going to have to be able to filter out a lot of stuff here in order to make it to where you got to be." And I took that and I ran with it, and I filtered out all that negative stuff. But that stems from going back to my parents again and what they instilled in me, that positive mindset. But Jimmy Hickman, I got to give him all the props in the world for pulling me aside and putting his arm around me and say, "Yeah, that's your filter." And I don't know, that's my best.
The amazing thing about that is he just took you aside, probably talked to you for 30 seconds or whatever, express that, and you say it transformed you and your life. And think about like just coaches that we have that opportunity in a moment. Now you're talking years down the road, like that was the best thing that I've heard and it's helped me in my life. That's awesome.
100%. And for sure.
Number 4 is this: what's the one character trait? Now, of course, you as a coach, character trait or life skill that you'd want in an athlete that you're coaching. If you could choose one.
I think I mentioned it earlier. It's got to be resilience and the ability to get back up again. Resilience number 1. So let me tell you a story. I was dating a girl in college, and I was playing tennis with her dad. And he was hustling me. I was sweating, and he didn't drop any kind of sweat. And there's a lady teaching her kid how to play tennis right next to us on the court next to us. And she's seen me run around like a chicken with its head cut off. And she comes over after they're done, after she's given her son a nice lesson, whatever. She comes over. She said, "Son, you really know how to take a beating, don't you?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, yeah, nice to meet you too. And that's what I've been able to do. I've been able to be resilient, and I've been able to get back up after I got knocked down hard. But that's what I would hope in my players. Always get back up, man, because it's gonna feel like you're out, but you're not. And right when you think you're out, you're so close to accomplishing the greatest moment of your life, you know. And that's what I'm always about, resilience. I don't know.
So how I think that's resilient is such a key, going back to like grit, going back to like a number one predictor of success that people are going to have. But you talk about how resilient you are, how you got knocked down and you get back up. Majority of people don't get back up.
I know.
They don't.
Yeah.
So what is it about you that you're like, you know, you can knock me down. You can hit me with a 2x4. You can run me over. I'm getting back up. What is it about Adam that you have that within you that you developed? What is it?
Well, it's the long view that I've always had, but it's the vision. For me personally, of being for me playing baseball, at least, of being a Major League Baseball player. Now, I mentioned being a parent. What I want for my children, I see that 10 years, 20 years from now, what kind of man I need to be right now so I can have a solid relationship with them 20 years from now. It's the long view, knowing that, yeah, today is going to be rough, but man, like last night I was working on stuff for these baseball programs we're putting together, and my daughter comes in and she says, "Dad, could you read me a story? You tell the best stories. Mom can't tell stories." Like, don't tell Mom that. And I can easily say, you know what, I just have Mom do it. I'll do it tomorrow. But if something comes in my brain and says, "This is important right now, do it." And I'm like, you know what? I'm done for tonight. Let's go. And I go, and it's just sweetest thing. I guess that's paying attention to the detail. The first question you guys asked, right? Like, pay attention to what's important. But I think that's innate from a higher being as well. I would be remiss not to mention that.
Yeah, I guess I got a fifth question, Jason. You guys talked about before with Adam saying he used to get 2 balls on a bat and he used to hit it and run. And they called him Labrador and they called him nuts. What do you do when your wife calls you nuts? I'm trying to figure that out at times.
That one you just got to take. That one you just got to turn the other cheek, I guess. Hey, yeah, you know what? You're right. That's what you got to say. The two most important things. The 2 important words that you'll learn in your marriage are 3 words, right? People think it's "I love you." It's "you are right." You're right.
Hey, I got another one too. Is that's interesting, and you say, "But you're right."
That's right. Yeah, 100%.
Adam, man, thank you for coming on the show today. How can people learn more about what you do? I know you got baseballutility.com. How can people reach out to you, learn more about what you're doing with the game?
Yeah, I mean that's really it for right now. We're definitely working on this mental game project, but that's coming out soon. We're super excited for that. But yeah, if you could follow us at Baseball Utility on Instagram, Twitter, whatever you guys. But a lot of great content that I like to put out just to help young players. So
I love it. Hey, I was gonna say, if you need a lefty that throws like 55, I couldn't break 55. But if you need me in the bullpen, 55, man, a constant changeup come in, you let me know.
All right.
Hey, if you need a pinch runner.
Hey, those crafty lefties, they go a long way. A pinch runner?
I can run, man. Pinch runner. Right. I mean, I can't really hit that well, but I can run like crazy, man. So,
All right. Well, I'll keep that in mind. Yeah, I'll let the A's.
35-year-old rookie pinch runner. I mean, who doesn't need that, right? I mean.
Hey, you never know. No.
Well, Adam, we will be in touch soon, man, and thank you again.
Yeah, well, thank you guys. Really appreciate you guys having me on the show.
Adam, awesome stuff. Thanks, man.
If you're looking to transform your athletes, teams, or organizations by teaching essential life skills through sports, Like us on Facebook at 40 Athletes and subscribe to our 40 Athletes YouTube channel. Also, be sure to check out our website at 40athletes.com. There you can enroll in our 24-week online course or schedule a discovery call today for less than $1 a day. You can transform your athletes and help them become better players by also helping them become better people. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you on the next episode of the 40 Athletes Live